Welcome into the official. Really having a lot of fun with this G5 series. So last week we talked about our favorite G5 recruits, really digging down deep into the ranking list and picking out guys who we think can be an asset in college fantasy side of your C2C leagues as soon as year one, but sometimes it might take a year or two. But these guys have high upside and most of the time going to good offenses. And sometimes in the G5, there's just offense, everything, defense optional, which we love for fantasy. So this is going to be part two. Tonight, we're going to go into the American or Conference USA, Mountain West, and Sun Belt. And there's quite a few guys that we really like to put on your fantasy benches and wait to see if they pop and can really offer some incredible upside down in those G5 ranks. So don't forget about the G5. This is the official. All right, gentlemen, we had such a fun time. G5 part one. We thought we would just do it again. Just off the cuff, what do you think? Conference USA, Mountain West, or Sun Belt? Who's your favorite group we're going to talk about tonight?
That's tough.
I don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah,
Well,
I think I have the most in the Mountain West actually.
So that's funny because I thought
nobody else has like anybody else in there.
Yeah, in general, Mountain West I think was a little underrepresented. For the first week, we did AAC and the MAC. We had at least 8 guys, I think, in each one. And then tonight we've got Conference USA 5, Mountain West 3 or 4, and Sunbelt's quite a few. I think Sunbelt makes a lot of sense because I've heard it referred to, and I think I agree with this, kind of the SEC junior, partly because of the footprint and partly because of it, they're getting guys who may be just on the borderline between SEC caliber and go to the Sun Belt. And there's some good football being played in the Sun Belt right now. I mean, it's actually very high quality G5 competition. So without further ado, if you want to know a little bit more about how we are processed and what we think about these G5 players, you can go check out the first version of this, the G5 Part 1 that was last week. Go to the YouTube channel that you are watching on right now and check out G5 Part 1. We go a little bit more through our process, but tonight we're going to head right into the names. No pomp and circumstance before. And we're going to start off with a guy, I'm going to give this one to Matt, although I think we're all a little bit interested, and that's Keith Willis going to Louisiana Tech. And you can look, I picked a picture here. He is an absolute tank. Introduces us to Willis, Matt.
Yeah, he's about 6 foot 215, so a very big running back. He plays on a really big Texas team, a top 50 team in the nation. He actually jumped from his junior season. He was a top 1,000, not even top 1,000 team in Texas, now a top 50 team in Texas, and he put up his best season of production yet, over 1,500 yards, 30 rushing touchdowns. His nickname's the Bulldozer, and he definitely plays like this. You're about to see that right here.
Oh.
Just coming down on a linebacker, making him regret that one. And we clocked him at over 21 miles per hour, which is fantastic at this size. So I think he can really go on to be a pretty successful college producer at the least, and maybe even, be one of these guys that bounces up to P5 and has a shot at the NFL.
I love it. And you saw there he had like a 65-yarder on one shoe. So, you got to love that dog in him that he's just going to take it to the house, shoes or no shoes. And the picture originally, I mean, if you go Google Keith Willis, Louisiana Tech, like all the pictures, he just looks huge. Like he carries that weight. He looks like he's 230. He just carries that weight. He's just really built, solid guy. And, Louisiana Tech, decent little offense there. Like, they don't really have a lot in the backfield. I agree with you. Could be year one where we start hearing the name Keith Willis. And maybe he winds up in P5. That's kind of the dream, right? So, sticking in Conference USA, David, I don't think we have any. No, we do have a video. So, I'm going to introduce Jarvis Hayes here, headed to Western Kentucky. We obviously love, love, love that offense. Tell us about Hayes as I roll the tape here.
Yeah, so Hayes plays in Georgia. He plays against 5A competition, so it's over a 30 strength of schedule for max preps. I think he's one of the better trackers, honestly. Certainly among the G5 players, but one of the better I've watched so far. You can see he's highly coordinated there. A leaping catch and still maintains speed. I like to see that. Just really productive. It's a system play. Obviously, we want guys from Western Kentucky. I think he's the best receiver they're getting in that class. I think it was Eric Singleton, but he got the P5 call up to Georgia Tech. So I think that kind of elevates our guy Jarvis Hayes a little bit.
I love it. And, if I'm going to start digging around in the 3-stars, I go to Florida, especially wide receivers. First, I go to Florida, then I go to Texas, and then I go to Georgia and Louisiana. I think that is the area that you can find these 3-star guys that really, can play above their ranking. So love to see it. Great pick there. And we had a guy last year, KD something. Can't remember his name. KD Hutchinson, who, went all the way up to National Signing Day without really knowing where he's going to go. He wound up in Western Kentucky. So maybe the Hayes-Hutchinson combo in the next few years really pays dividends for us. So then I'm going to introduce, let's see. We got Cameron Lacey. So this is a dude I like quite a bit, headed to Middle Tennessee State. And so you can see he's kind of a smaller guy, 5'9", 155, and otherwise fairly buried, on any lists or anything like that. I was just running down, looking at guys, giving a sneak peek for myself, for anyone going to the G5. And Lacey really popped on tape. Smaller guy, but obviously, if they're really small, that means they're probably going to be really fast if they're going to get an FBS look. And he does not disappoint from that perspective. Here he is fielding a punt. And just really shows off some electricity there. Very shifty. You can see he's making a couple quick moves, eludes a guy, and then even now, still as he gets closer to the end zone, still making quick moves. I mean, his movement in space is really impressive, which is going to be the only way a guy of that size is probably going to survive at the FBS level. But I really like him because he's going to an offense that actually threw the ball quite a bit last year. And, the offense in Middle Tennessee State is not that bad. And really anybody in the G5 who can be this explosive, run away from guys, has a chance to contribute right away. I bet he already has a skill set they don't really have at Middle Tennessee State. And in addition, from a production standpoint, I believe he had over 50% of his high school, production, at least as a senior. So, even though he's a small guy, he was scooping up targets and making huge, huge plays for his high school. Again, I think he's a guy from the state of Georgia. So, I mean, that just is a very consistent theme. Guys we talked about last week, too, were either from Florida or Texas going to G5 schools that we really liked on tape. Matt, let's bring it back to you. Tell us about this guy going to FIU, Keon Jenkins.
Yeah, so he's actually, he went to Miami Central in Florida. He just won the state championship. He beat American Heritage, and I actually watched that game. He looked very clean throughout it. Didn't really struggle much with them, honestly. Lefty, as you can see here, he has really high velocity over expected. I believe the 8th best in the class at over 8. I don't love the spot, unfortunately. He was committed to Auburn for a bit, but then flipped back to FIU. Once they got Hugh Friesen, I guess they didn't want to keep him around. And I definitely think he has the talent to be playing P5. He's a bit small, a bit leaner, but I don't love the FIU offense. They were not great this year, and I don't anticipate them being great. So I'm hoping they can at least bring in new staff, or maybe he transfers somewhere else. But he's definitely a player I like. I just don't know how promising his CFF chops are at the moment.
Yeah, I think that checks out. I mean, FIU, they kind of were a little plucky in the second half of last year. I mean, I could say they were covering spreads at least. They were they had one decent win. They beat somebody. And then Tyrese Chambers was pretty good there, even from a college fantasy perspective. Their tight end who transferred to Auburn was pretty interesting. So, anywhere in the state of Florida, with FIU, FAU, we talked about a guy last year going to FAU. I mean, these schools do get diamonds in the rough, and so I definitely think it's worth looking at. And a powerhouse school in Miami with a big arm, like you mentioned, high VOE, that's velocity over expected, is always nice to bet on. I think that's pretty sweet. We got another guy here. I'll be honest, I don't have a ton to say about him, but Connor Kenyon is a quarterback headed to Sam Houston State, who will be playing in the CUSA next year, moving up from FCS to FBS. So this is, kind of the lowest, the deepest we're going to go is like a brand new FCS school. But as we saw James Madison do last year, that does not mean they can't be productive and helpful from the college fantasy side. They're going to be on the field. They're going to be racking up points. Kenyon's a true freshman quarterback. I don't think he's going to start or anything right away. I just looked at him. I thought he had a pretty live arm and kind of an interesting looking dude. So just a name to file away. I wouldn't advocate, actually drafting him in any sort of format. Am I missing anyone from Conference USA? I think that covers who we have. Matt, David, anybody else? Okay.
Nope, I think we're good.
Looks good. Let's move on to the Mountain West, who Matt really likes Mountain West. And we're going to start with a guy Matt has been talking about for a long time. He was listed as an athlete. We didn't know what he was going to do. We assumed receiver. But now it looks like he's going to play running back, and I will let Matt talk more about it, but that might be more interesting than receiver. This is Justin Marshall headed to Colorado State.
Yeah, like Alfred said, we've been on the Marshall train for a while now. He's probably one of the first episodes about this class where we probably talked about him. He's 6 foot 190 or 5'10", 190. Now listed at running back for Colorado State, which makes it much more interesting because he was really just a yak receiver to begin with. He plays very physical at his size, very fast, just under 22 miles per hour. And I have the receiving chops on top of it. He should pan out as a pretty interesting running back prospect at the least. You can see him here. He moved well laterally, amazing contact balance at his size. And yeah, I think it's just a really fun profile. There's not much to not like here.
Yeah, and remind me, Matt, I know you were excited about him because he was this multi-versatile weapon, and you can see he was lined up wide outside. He's like winning against DBs as an ex wide out there. But didn't he have like incredible inefficiency or something like that? Like we looked at him and there was some huge problem from the wide receiver perspective, but if he goes to a running back and he has even kind of receiving ability, that's actually really fun, like you said.
I mean, statistically, I don't think that there's any inefficiency. He was actually one of the highest producing wide receivers in my model. Okay. So, I mean, you could there's just a lot of gripes as to his actual wide receiver play. He didn't really do much other than get the ball in short situations and just take it from there.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I do like the fit at running back. David, Stephon Daly's a guy for you, also headed to Colorado State. And we were talking off air before we jumped on here. We kind of like that offense towards the end of the season. It was an offense that we thought could be really productive, especially from the quarterback and wide receiver. Took them a couple of weeks to get going. But what do you think Stephon Daly brings to that room, and why are you excited about him?
I think Colorado State just does a good job identifying guys in general. I think he came across my radar when I was looking through some, I guess it's real analytics now, that he was really high on their athlete score, which, how much do we care about that for receivers? I think I care about it more for the G5. I feel like some of these receivers can get away without athleting, inferior defensive backs. So he's a guy that has a 6'8" high jump. I think that was his first time ever doing the high jump event.
Can I butt him real quick? I looked up Quinn Johnston, 6'8" high jump as a junior as well. So
we're talking about that level of freak athlete. Yeah.
Yeah. So super explosive. He's gonna win in the air really easily. I feel like in the G5, and obviously I do factor in the Colorado State track record. So that that's kind of what we're looking at. He's really long too.
Yeah, 6'4" listed at least on 24/7 and 175. So that long, can he pack on some pounds? And I agree with you. I think it's a really astute observation that I've been a big mocker maybe of people who obsess over like the measurements in the combine when you're talking about college to NFL. because at the highest level, I think you need a lot more than athleticism. But I agree with you. The lower you go, we know guys can just out athleticize people, and I think the G5 is an interesting, thing that we're worried about the college fantasy side for a lot of these guys. Not necessarily a Devy asset or an NFL potential, but you can definitely do that in the Mountain West, for example. So good pickup there. And then I will bring to light Caden Dawson, 6'4", 232 tight end, headed to Boise State. Just a good G5 program. They identify talent. They bring in guys pretty frequently, and he's got the height already. He's pretty big at 235 already listed, and then his frame looks like he can easily add some pounds. I mean, I think he'd get to 250 without too much of a problem, and he just moves well. I mean, at this point in the evaluation, I'm really just looking for like athletic, bigger guys at tight end, and sometimes they look very Frankenstein lumbering out there, and when they show a little twitch and fluidity of the hips and things like that, and of course, you're looking to see if they can dunk a basketball, of course, here at the official, that's one of our big metrics. And Dawson kind of brings all that together. So he's just a guy that I just thought was interesting. And of course, going to a good quality P5 program that's known to like develop guys, with even some a hint of NFL potential, more than some of these other schools as well. I think we ran through the Mountain West real quick. I don't know if I missed anybody. Is there another video?
You missed one. There's no more videos, but there is one more player going to Hawaii.
Oh, of course. I have an intro here.
West, yeah?
I do have an intro graphic.
Yeah.
All right. So, Eddie Osai Nikita. You can see here in the graphic, he is a track athlete. We don't even have a football picture. Matt, introduce us to this guy.
Yeah, so he actually has the 100-meter record in New Zealand at 10:08, which is incredibly fast, especially with how big of a person he is, 6'5", 210. I've seen him listed between 6'3" and 215 around there. And he's getting listed between wide receiver and running back right now. He has some rugby experience, but zero football, obviously. He's 21 years old. So there's a ton of projection. It's a very fun player. He's still doing this track season, so he's not even going to be there for spring football. You're not going to hear anything about him until the season starts, where I assume he's not going to play it down this year. But it's just a very interesting project player to look out for. If you're the type of guy that's going to draft like a Nicholas Harbor, I mean, this guy is every bit as athlete as him. He has faster track times than Harbor does. Granted, he's 3 years older, but I mean, still incredible size, incredible athletic ability. And I think, as time goes along, we're going to see more and more of these international prospects start to hit. I mean, Jordan Mailata is kind of the crown example right now in the NFL for the Eagles, left tackle. But, just a shot in the dark. Maybe I'll draft him in the last round. I would never advocate drafting him anything earlier than that. Just to
to be honest,
for 3 years.
Unless they listen to the official on a regular basis, your league mates will not know who this is at all. So no worries anyone's going to snipe you on this guy.
No, he's definitely not a guy I'm reaching for in the slightest.
No. I mean, but it's fun, right? This is fun, and we're doing a G5 show. This is what it's all about. Wanted to throw that name out there, specifically created the graphic so you could take a look at him. He looks huge. He looks 21 as well. I mean, he looks older. Like, he just does not look like a teenage high school player. Who knows? I mean, it's Hawaii. Like, he can play. He can play year one. I don't know. Maybe they'll put him back there and return kicks or something. I mean, it's Hawaii.
I'd let him play running back. I'd just throw him out there.
Yeah, why not? It's freaking Hawaii. Like, I don't know. You just never know. Pretty interesting, but he's huge and fast, and those are two really good things when you're just like betting blindly on a guy. All right, so that's pretty much the Mountain West, though. Definitely, I would say the shortest list of any of these G5 conferences, which is weird because I think there's some good football in the Mountain West, but just at least from a skill positions that we focus on here at fantasy, for fantasy purposes, not that many. Arkansas State might have the most players of any one team here, moving to the Sun Belt. We've got 4 names in Arkansas State.
I've actually got another one I'd even buy.
5 names you didn't even put on the sheet. All right. Well,
I just kind of want to address I mean, we each have our favorites here, but I think we should we owe the viewers to at least inform them about all these other guys they're bringing in, because they
Yeah,
bring in
I
a
mean
lot of
Arkansas
guys.
State, man, Red Wolves, look out. I mean, let's go with you first, Matt. I'm going to throw Clyde Curry to you, and then let's go right into Tenell Bryant, who we talked about recently, or no, was on a graphic that we put out from our recruiting account. So, David, you take Bryant, but first, Matt, give me some info here on Clyde Curry.
Yeah, he's a pretty small high school guy. I think he's out of Alabama, but he's 6'3", 175 pounds. Verified 10.65 100-meter time, so very, very fast, very long. And that's kind of why I'm banking on him out of any of these other Arkansas State wide receivers, because at least he has the size. A very common theme you're going to see here is all these guys are very small and very, very fast. And so at least he has one trait that'll make him stand out. He can go up and get the ball. He's longer. And maybe a P5 team will want to pluck him up a little bit more than these little guys.
Makes sense. David, Tenell Bryant.
His nickname is Young Cheetah. So he's when we did the freaks list, he popped for, I think Matt got him at 22.7 miles per hour. He's the fastest guy in the class. I mean, that's
Wow.
the gist of it right there. He's a smaller guy, like that's why he's going to G5. I think he's like 5'10", 160, 165, somewhere in there. His production's okay. He's out of Ohio, so maybe, I don't know, maybe he's overlooked a little bit because he's in, the Midwest. I don't know, that happens. But he's just an interesting, fast guy to look out for. I actually prefer Clyde Curry, so I'm not going to overly pump this guy up just because I think he might be the second best receiver in that class. But he's just an interesting guy he's a big playmaker to watch.
All right, and then moving to DeAndre Burns. I don't know who wrote that name down, but Matt, if it was you, take him and add the fifth name, and then I'll give mine from Arkansas State. This is like turned into an Arkansas State show.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same things you heard from Tenell. I mean, we don't have a verified mile per hour time on him, but I mean, you could watch the tape. He's very fast, about 5'10", 170, I'd say. I don't have his exact numbers down. But he was a super, super productive wide receiver, one of the highest production scores in this class for me. So that trait alone, definitely pops out. Higher production score than any of these other guys are getting in this class. And then they're also getting in another running back / wide receiver and Chauncey Cobb. I believe he's the lowest rated out of these guys. Maybe Tenell might be lower rated. I believe he's only like 5'6" or 5'7", maybe 150 pounds. He looks real tiny on film, but he looks very similar to the guy Alfred's about to show here up next as well.
Yeah. Another smallish guy. Let me find his Cedric Hawkins, listed 5'9", 175. So for like a third down back, a guy who's going to be change of pace probably heading into college, it's not so bad. Maybe it's even underestimating, but he looks smallish when you watch the tape. We'll turn that on here in a minute. But so electric. Again, this is a common theme when you're digging down into the G5. Size is what's going to prohibit a lot of these guys from getting the big offers. But we know with like Keaton Mitchell, I mean, if you're fast and you have good instincts, you can really rise. So we got Hawkins here. He's taking some stuff in the background there, cutting it outside. I mean, that juke right there was really something else. I mean, 1, 2, 3, and just evading guys not able to touch him. I mean, if you're 175 pounds, it may not matter if no one can touch you. And he seems to have that jitterbug juke, multiple types of jukes in his repertoire. And then here you got him, kind of catching a little bubble screen, and really just, I mean, amazing stuff, utilizing a spin move there, breaking a tackle. He's just one of those guys that it is more than just straight line speed. I mean, he's very fast, but he's shifty and he moves and side to side agility. Really like him. And a place like Arkansas State, I mean, he could really do something for the college side of fantasy for sure. Oh man, I'm tired. I'm out of breath with Arkansas State.
Yeah, a lot of fun guys though. I'm excited to see who's gonna pop off. I really don't even have a solid bet on which one, but names to look for at least.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this in the first version of this show, but like these are names to remember. If even if you're box score hunting on a Sunday after the Saturday games and you see a guy, one of these guys we're talking about, and maybe they got 10 touches or 7 receptions, that should be something where most of your league mates maybe haven't even heard the name before. You've heard it before. You heard us talk about him. You can be the first to the waiver wire. I don't think these guys are draftable in most formats, but certainly there's there's benefit to having a nice little Rolodex of the high priority waiver names. So you are first in line and not waiting till everybody knows the name. So things like that. That's kind of what this show I think is for. Um, Let's see. I just talked a lot. David, give us your thing on this guy, Max Moss, headed to James Madison, who really took the FBS by storm. First season in FBS, they were like ranked. I don't know. They were 8-0, 9-0. They were ranked top 25. Kind of fell off after that, but certainly an offense that's worth monitoring.
Yeah, he popped really hard in Matt's production model. And from an athlete perspective, I noticed that his power profile, it's something I usually don't really look at too much with receivers, but I noticed that like when guys try to tackle him high or, just arm tackles, he was barely affected. He's also a really good hands catcher. I mean, not every time, but most times he'll catch with hands away from out of his frame. Uh, so he's very productive. Good after the catch. He's got a longer stride, but he does get to 21 miles per hour. So it's just a good athlete overall, and I think this is the play. This play stood out to me. His hands here and just how easy he plucks it and maintains speed and just made it look kind of effortless. As far as James Madison goes, like I don't know if they pass a ton, but he's physically ready to, contribute right away, and he could be a wide receiver one down the line.
Yeah, I think that's all. I mean, I can't disagree with you. And I agree, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on a podcast, that's great. But we do have clips of these guys. And, if you get a chance, watch the YouTube because I think seeing these guys in action more than hearing about them is actually really beneficial. But, Moss, like you mentioned, those are great examples of hands catching. If you hear people talk about he's a hands catcher, that is what we're talking about. You saw a few, but the one that really stood out to me was more of the slant where you could see it from the back camera angle on the slant. He's reaching out in front of him and catching with his hands. You see so many people, especially on a play like a slant, they kind of catch it into their bicep and forearm and like tuck it. But he catches it out in front and then tucks it. And the subtle difference, but that's more of a sure way to grab, less chance of the DB getting their hand in and things. And when the margins of the game get smaller, that makes a difference for completion or an incompletion. Um, so that's a great example, great nuance there, David, to pick that out for sure. I'm going to let you keep going because we got Anthony Eager, and I think Matt has less guys in this group than he did, Matt
Only
West, for
one
example.
left.
Yeah. So tell us about Anthony Eager headed to South Alabama.
So Eager, this is kind of a rare thing where you get a 6'1" guy that's super fast headed to the G5. So I couldn't get a mile per hour on him. Usually that's for two reasons. One, either he's slow or he's really bad with the ball in his hands. And so like he's not very good with the ball in his hands, I'm not gonna lie, but he does win vertically. You can see right there. I had that same issue with like Chris Olave because he was so bad with the ball in his hands, I couldn't get a mile per hour on him. But like he's definitely fast. And so over the winter he ran a 6.83 60-meter, which is that's really fast. Some of the some guys around that same area is like Darius Hayward Bay, like Warwick Dunn's around there, Champ Bailey. I don't know. Those are some guys that ran around a 6.83. So it's just he needs to get stronger. Maybe he's one of these guys that, when he stops doing track and starts hitting the weights, he puts on good muscle and gets better after the catch. But it's just, you don't really usually see a 6'1" guy with that type of speed that goes G5.
Yeah, you can see a little on the last play there when he does catch it kind of more over the middle, and then he just doesn't. I mean, compared to the other guys we've watched, he doesn't seem to know what to do in the open field quite as much. I mean, it's very subtle, but like you can kind of see it's not as fluid turning the ball upfield. So yeah, good point there. Let's do Southern Miss because I've got a player I really like, and then I know Matt does. We'll let him do his last player here. But Ethan Crawford is a guy we've been talking about since last summer. His biggest issue from a scouting perspective and trying to project is 5'10" quarterback, but he's thick, 205. I mean, that's really, some of these guys are 6'4", 185, and he's 5'10" and 205. I saw him at the Elite 11. He looks every bit. I mean, I believe it. He's over 200 pounds. So he's kind of, he's a thick guy. He can run a little bit. And we had him on the show, actually, to talk about some of his metrics from the Elite 11. He's got one of the fastest release times that you will see. And so really fun player, headed to a school that, a lot of these schools, like if you're really good, you're going to play pretty quick because it's not like they have tons of depth. So I just like him. I think he's can be an effective quarterback at the G5 level. And the height doesn't bother me, at least, on the college fantasy and G5 side. And then Javion Butler could be is going to be his teammate at Southern Miss. Matt, tell us about Javion Butler, his wide receiver. Could be a nice Crawford to Butler in the future.
Yeah, Butler is about 6'5", 200 plus, maybe 205. And he's very fast for his size, which as you're about to see here. We've clocked him at, just under 22 miles per hour, 21.8, which is pretty incredible at his size. A pretty rare club there. And, just going to such a great offense for early production. I mean, Tia Kellen, Mims last year was able to produce early as a true freshman. I think they're very willing to get these guys on the field early. And I definitely think he has the skill set to do that as well. He just participated in the Alabama Mississippi All-Star game. They have like a yearly game where the two states' best prospects play against each other. And in my opinion, he looked like the clear best wide receiver there in practices. And there were some other big name guys in there, like Aiden Williams, the Ole Miss commit. And a few other reporters said he did look the best too. So it's not just me. He's just a very interesting prospect. I think Southern Miss got a steal here.
Southern Miss, man, fun team down the stretch. They are lights out at home. I mean, you do not walk into Hattiesburg, I believe it's Hattiesburg, and get an easy win. I think I felt like this, but I heard some smarter people than me say that like the future of Sun Belt could be Southern Miss. Like they're really building something there, which is exciting for us too. And then David, I think Elijah Davis, he's kind of your guy, right? Running back headed to Louisiana.
That's your guy, right?
All right. I thought.
I mean, I could talk him if you want.
Yeah, just so I don't like to talk that much, or I do like to talk, but I like to not when I can. Elijah Davis, another thick guy headed to Louisiana. So yeah, Matt, go for it.
Our buddy Carter is actually the one who put me onto him, so he's not even my find technically. Very small school running back, more of the grinder type, but I think we got him at 20.5 miles per hour. He's just a really good all-around runner. He's the type of back I can see being, very productive in college. He just has a skill set to play early and, produce very well, I think.
And Louisiana, I mean, they didn't change much with Napier gone. They want to run that football forever and rack up points. They didn't really have a standout athlete, I don't think, at the position this year. So, a guy like Davis could certainly come in and get part of that rotation. All right, and then I think it might be my turn to close it out here with Braylon Ragland, quarterback headed to Georgia State. In my backyard here, they plucked him out of Tennessee, so kind of going to another state outside of the city limits and getting a quarterback here. But I really like him. I think he's very fluid mover and athlete. Like, he's got some. His production won't wow you in terms of looking at what he did, on max preps, but like you can see here, he's fluid. I think he's maybe a little jittery in the pocket, to be honest with you. You can see he's like kind of weirdly, moving out to the side there, but you watch enough of his tape and there's the athleticism is absolutely there. And the arm strength looks adequate headed to Georgia State. I think he's a guy that can play, and, we're just looking for athletes in a lot of these guys. I think if they were refined and, all that, then they'd probably be going P5. So, you have to accept that there's going to be wrinkles here, but I think he's an interesting quarterback prospect for sure. Did I miss anybody? I think we got them all.
No, I think we got them.
So that wraps up the G5 series. We did part 1, part 2, and these are some really exciting players that don't be surprised when you hear their name, even as soon as next year. I mean, that's the other thing with the G5. It's very fun because these guys can come in and like play right away because these depth charts, they get plucked through from the transfer portal. They get plucked through for graduation, and they weren't that deep to begin with. So you got a guy with this exceptional skill set. He could play immediately. So it is kind of fun, especially on that college fantasy side. So file these names away. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure again. Thank you. And I believe we have a lineup coming up. I think we're going to start our 3-star series, which backed by popular demand. It's been called one of the favorite things of the offseason by a couple of people. We're going to look at favorite 3-star quarterbacks, favorite 3-star running backs, and wide receivers as well over the next 3 weeks. So definitely tune in for that. This has been The Efficient.